It is Orange on Game Day Friday. We discussed the keys to victory, but after watching Colorado and our scout team D, there might be a cause for concern.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall, and I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day State. Today, we're partially brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. No matter what the rush is, you need to get squared away when you're getting tired and need to fix it fast. With zero sugar, it's convenient. It's in a portable size. It's the best pick-me-up in the game when you need to get stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Make sure you go to 5hourenergy.com today to get squared away. Meanwhile, we get squared away in the conversation of the Cowboys. Maybe we're a little bit bullish after watching Colorado and North Dakota State, which is a new coach team that has a new high-flying offense, which is a little bit of an adjustment phase, but nonetheless, they gave Colorado everything they wanted and more. Now, from a talent perspective, most people would likely argue that Colorado has as good as the top 11 guys for Oklahoma State when you're talking about the starters. And to some degree, that might be true. I don't necessarily agree, but there's a lot of punditry out there that would say talent on talent, Colorado's ones are as good as Oklahoma State's ones, if not better. And North Dakota State probably should have won that game, right? There's some clock mismanagement there at the end. They threw a Hail Mary that was actually caught because Colorado was trying to get greedy and get an interception, even though Travis Hunter is yelling all his teammates, knock it down, knock it down, knock it down. They still went for the pick anyways, and it led to a reception by the Bison on like the 2 or 3 yard line. So if the dude had 3 yards longer on his arm, we would be talking about a Colorado loss. And since South Dakota State has been beating up on North Dakota State for a couple of years now, that should be a cause for concern to some degree. Another layer of cause for concern would be the fact that Wednesday's practice, the first team offense was absolutely dominated by the scout team so often that the coaches had to stop practice. They had to make some adjustments, and practice still went a little bit longer for seemingly not much of a reason. Now, I will give this caveat. Our scout team is dudes like Landyn Cleveland and David Kabongo and Gunnar Wilson, Emil Talib, Jacoby Oliphant, Ike Essenwoon. So our scout team is a cheat code. But the fact that they had multiple sacks and tackles for loss, and they were getting in the backfield pretty regularly to the point that the first team offense had to stop and adjust stuff while taking ASSSS chewings that they rightfully deserve. Of course, the scout team was getting praised. We've talked about how this is the most underrated class of all time in Oklahoma State history. That is one of the reasons that I would say that, yes, naturally it's a cause for concern. You don't want your scout team dominating your first team ever. But when it does happen, you have to look at some of the bigger lenses here. We know from a defensive perspective that we've gone through spring, we've gone through fall, we're deep enough into camp now that the defenses do have a pretty good understanding of what the plays are going to be predicated upon lineups and shifts and where the tight end is and where the ace formation or whatever. But it is a little concerning. I do firmly believe that this scout team is the best in the Big 12, but we're about to find out. Because if our scout team is not the best in the Big 12, then South Dakota State is going to give us a game that we don't really want any part of. So it would be a large leap to potentially go out and say that our scout team is as good as North Dakota State or South Dakota State, because I don't necessarily think that is fair. They do have some big-time linebackers. They do have some guys on the offensive side of the ball that would be able to make some hay in the Big 12 conference. But by and large, right, their depth, I think, is going to be an overall issue whenever you take into consideration how many dudes they had to bring in and how many freshmen they have available to quote-unquote play. It's just not the same. And again, if you're going to be talking about guys like Gunnar Wilson. So our third string, fourth string linebackers, 6'3", 215 pounds, and runs a 4.5 40. Right? I mean, it's just kind of not all that fair. Jacoby Oliphant, 6'4", 195-pound cornerback. That's a good litmus test for what we're going to see against South Dakota State. They don't necessarily have that kind of size, but they do have a lot of 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2" corners. So that's going to be a good test. And then the back end, it speaks for itself when you're talking about Landyn Cleveland, David Kabongo, Taiwan Ray is a big name that I think we'll all get familiar with as time goes on. Landon Dean is somebody that I think is good enough, athletic enough to play tight end. So it's not always a bad thing to see the scout team out there doing the daggone thing against the ones, but I will admit that it is slightly problematic. You would prefer your ones to still be able to dominate the scout team, even if the scout team knows what play is coming, even if they know what zone to kind of sit down in and what to anticipate. You should athletically, talent-wise, still be able to do some things. Now, I will say from a scout team perspective, they are a scout team. They do make mistakes. They overrun the ball sometimes. They bite on double fake moves on the outside sometimes. That's part of being young. I don't necessarily think that South Dakota State is going to bite the same way that some of our scout team guys do. But again, I've overemphasized the fact that whomever in the Big 12 has the best scout team will win the Big 12 more often than not. That is the team that is designed to get your starters ready. And as we just witnessed, sometimes getting those starters ready can have some hiccups. Sometimes you have to make some adjustments. Now, today being a Friday shell day, there's not a whole lot of adjustments that need to be made at this point in time. Today's pretty much just a walkthrough. But even in a walkthrough, there's some fine-tuning that you can do to make some adjustments, scoot somebody 2 inches this way or 3 inches this way, or scoot a little bit closer to the ball to cut off this route as opposed to this route. And there's several things you can implement to some degree, but Friday is more of a walkthrough, right? Just to make sure that we all know what's taking place. Now, Thursday, they did have a day to, fix some of the scout team issues that popped up Wednesday, which obviously were successful to some degree. Is it going to be enough of a degree? Is this going to be a cause for concern for you guys, or do you jump on the Cody train and feel like that this scout team is athletically more gifted than even half of the starters that we currently have? Because we have a lot of guys that have been through years of body by glass, like Rashad Owens, Brennan Presley. How all of the offensive linemen have been doing the daggone thing for years here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Therefore, the continuity should be a big deal. But other than the fact that the scout team D does know what plays are coming and where the formations are coming from, we're about to find out. Is our scout team that good? Or is our first team offense still dealing with some issues that are going to be exploitable for South Dakota State? I hope for the former as opposed to the latter, but we're about to find out. That's the beauty of this time in life and in college football, as we all now get the opportunity to find out what it's going to look like on a game day and kind of see where the scout team stacks up. I'm feeling kind of bullish, so I feel like I should stay that way. You should feel kind of bullish about your meals. It is important nowadays to kind of pay attention to your health. With Factors, no prep, no mess meals, it's the best in the game. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals like Smart Calorie, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factors fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. They're great tasting, and if you're busy and on the go, they allow you to enjoy nutritious meals. Make today the day that you kickstart a healthier routine with getting squared away with Factor, with over 35 different meals and over 60 add-ons to choose from. Every single week, you'll have new flavors to explore. Dominate your wellness goals this month with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can always trust. Whether it be breakfast, dessert, dinner, stay fueled with the easy, nutritious options with Factor. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use that code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That code is LockedOn50 at factormeals.com/LockedOn50. Go there now to get that 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is being activated and ready to go for you. Additionally, guys, eBay Motors is the best in the game. I know you already know that, but you can't be the MVP of anything if you can't make it there. Make your car the MVP today with the right passion, drive, and experience, the right formula for winning championships. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your rig. Keep it up to peak performance, whether it be superchargers, roof racks, LED lighting kits, and more. Speed, power, style, doesn't matter. eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from, it is easy to keep your ride or die rig alive today. eBay Motors has a guaranteed fit, meaning your part's going to fit your rig every time or your money back. Burn the rubber, not cash. With eBay Motors, all the parts you need, all the prices you want. It's easy to turn your rig into the MVP. Bring home the next big W by keeping your ride or die rig alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply, but make sure you check out ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available for U.S. customers because you are special. We are also special because college football season is back in the fold. And, of course, Colorado may be a cause for concern. Scout team getting a lot of sacks and TFLs might be a cause for concern. But if we're looking at this game just from a matchup standpoint, as we discussed yesterday, we now have to view the keys of victory. I think the most common sense answer would be to try to stop Mark Gronowski. He is the best player in the FCS. He is their Heisman Trophy Award winning recipient, which is the Walter Payton Award. So he's going to be difficult to maintain. And athletically, he does present some problems. Shout out to Jay Southwell for doing the comparison with Zach Robinson. I think it's pretty good. Now, he does not run as much as Zach, nor do they want him to run as much as Zach, but he does have the ability. So I don't think it's so much about letting him pick us apart or stopping him pick us apart. It's more about contain so we can get to him in time to make things chaotic for him. So we'll take this thing a little bit deeper of a layer here. Their offensive line does have some dudes, but they lost their two mainstays to the NFL that are going to be able to be playing on Sundays. You cannot replace that. I understand Gus Miller is a very, very good ball player, but it's hard to orchestrate everything with the entirety of the offensive line. So the biggest matchup to me to discuss first is going to be our D-line versus their O-line. If our D-line can constantly get pressure and live in the backfield in under 3.5 to 4 seconds, I don't see any way that South Dakota State finds enough time to get downfield and make some stuff happen. Because, again, the downfield coverage is obviously helped significantly by the pass rush. Last year, we didn't have an emphasis on the pass rush. Last year was about dominating an area of operation to open up guys in the back to get the tackles, i.e. Nick Martin's 140 tackles. This year's D-line has to be different. The expectation is definitely different. They cannot just eat up areas of operation anymore. They need to get in on the sack parties, the tackles for loss parties, making the quarterback, change his platform and cause some interceptions. D-line, O-line, that's one of the biggest matchups for me. Another massive matchup has to be our secondary, what everyone's going to talk about. They do have Griffin Wilde, a phenomenal wide receiver. They did bring in Kai O'Day from Colorado State. They also have a couple other wide receivers, including Elijah Irvin that they brought in from Snow College, 6'1", 200 some odd pounds, 202, 203 pounds. Snow College produces some phenomenal dudes, i.e. Jalen Warren. We're very well aware of what Snow can do. We've had several Snow guys. So I think that's another big-time matchup that we need to pay attention to. Their linebacker core is something that they're extremely proud of. So I'm looking at our offensive line's ability to get to the second level against their linebackers. I am less concerned about what our offensive line does with their defensive line. We need to be able to get up to the second level. I would argue the first half of last season, that was our biggest difficulty from an offensive line perspective. It wasn't even necessarily even that pass pro. It was more of getting a hat on a hat and then also getting a hat to the second level to open up more room for Ollie Gordon and, of course, Trent Howland and Sesi Vilahe. Now, Trent Howland has already mentioned that this offensive line is significantly different than what he was able to run behind at Indiana. Not that Indiana was a bad line. This line is just different. So, again, this kind of does peek its head back to the scout team thing. Is it a concern, or is our scout team really that good? I want to see what their linebacker core is able to do when our offensive linemen do get to the second level. If that happens, I think they're going to be in for a long day. Now, if they can find a way to prevent our offensive linemen from nullifying their linebackers, then that could be a problematic thing that pops up for us. Another big key to victory is going to be the passing game. The objective should be to stop the running game. I would imagine that's going to be every team that we play's objective coming into the game. Currently, there's not a reason to quote-unquote shut down the pass game because Most people feel like if you make Alan Bowman continuously pass enough, you will get a multitude of interceptions. That is the perception. This is the game where we need to change that perception. I don't have a lot of reservations about Ollie Gordon, whether he's going to get 10 carries, 11 carries, 15 carries. Trent Hallen, same thing, 10 carries. Sesi Valahe, 10 carries. Whatever the distribution is, I do see us able to run on them somewhat freely in the back end, and we need to be able to showcase that. Our wide receiver room is something that they're not going to be used to. Do they have some dudes that can stop a guy? Probably. 3 guys, I don't see it. So our wide receiver core with Alan Bowman needs to be able to pick some plays deep, big plays. Big plays are going to be a big key to victory for me. I think we're going to be able to prevent most big plays. We are going to give up some just because we're naturally extremely aggressive. But when you have the size, skill, and speed that we have, being aggressive is typically going to be a good thing. Again, it's a risk-to-reward ratio. I feel like the reward is going to outweigh the risk more often than not, and I think Brian Nardo feels the same way. And lastly, when we're talking about keys to victory, I think that we'd all be remiss if we didn't talk about tight ends. We know they're going to use their tight ends because their offensive coordinator was an offensive line guy and a tight end guy. They used their tight ends very, very, very well the last couple of years, and they have 10 tight ends on the roster, meaning that is clearly a position that they have designated early on in the recruiting process that is absolutely instrumental to their success. Oklahoma State's tight ends, it's kind of a new thing to us. For all the Jackrabbit family out there, Oklahoma State did go through a healthy amount of time, 6, 7, 8 years, where we got rid of the tight ends and we did this thing called a Cowboy back, which was supposed to be like an emergence of fullback, H-back, tight end, all kind of rolled into one. The problem with it was we weren't able to recruit any legitimate tight ends. Nobody wanted to come be a pseudo fullback, pseudo H-back, pseudo whatever tight end. Nobody really wanted to do that played tight end. They wanted to go somewhere that had tight ends that were, part of the route tree. We didn't have that until basically last season. And Josiah Johnson had a very, very good year, but there was a multitude of times that he was caught kind of wide open because he wasn't part of the main, 2 or 3 reads for Alan Bowman in the route tree. The time in the pocket from this offensive line should provide Alan Bowman a little bit more time to disseminate the ball all the way through the route tree instead of just looking at the first few looks. The tight end matchup between Oklahoma State and South Dakota State will be big in the keys to victory. They know who to stop on the outside. They know they have to key on stopping the running back. They do know Alan Bowman is susceptible to mechanically getting kind of wonky. So they're going to try to exploit all of that. That's why the tight ends are going to be a big thing for Oklahoma State this season. You have to have that dump off. That isn't just a flare out of the backfield. Is it going to be Tyler Foster? Are we going to see Josh Ford get his first grab? Are we going to see Quentin Stewart kind of, take another step in his maturation process? Is this going to be a game where Luke McIndoe or Jake Schultz get a little bit more involved, or are they just going to be, relegated to that blocking role? Are we going to see some of that diamond set? I know all of us would love to see it. So that's going to be the keys to victory for me. It's not overly complicated, but there are some things that we clearly need to clear up. Protection. Right? That might be the biggest key to victory. If we can protect, we win. We should be able to protect with our 172 returning 5 starts and our 223 starts behind them. Should not be a big issue. And they're replacing most of their defensive line. They do have Blake Peterson, number 8, 6'5", 255-pound defensive end that came over from Iowa State, who started the first 7 games of Iowa State last season pre-injury. That'll be a good test. I'm excited to see what Jake Springfield or Dalton Cooper have up their sleeves for that individual. But outside of that, their D-line is kind of patchwork. Our offensive line should be able to control that. If not, I don't know. Are they like our scout team? I don't know. But I do have a lot of faith in our scout team. I also have some faith in 5-hour energy helping me get through this trip. We're literally hitting the road in like 20 minutes. So by the time you see this, I will already be on the highway. But nonetheless, I will likely need a 5-hour energy for this 8.5, 9-hour drive. Got to do it twice. Plus, we got to drive to and from baseball tournaments. Plus, I've got 1 ticket, but I've got 2 of my boys with me. So if I don't get 3 tickets, obviously I won't be driving down for the Oklahoma State game. But it's all right. We'll focus on some baseball. And you need to focus on getting your 5-hour energy. If you're watching sports, you know you're going to need it. The Cardiac Cowboys are going to give you times in most games where you're going to need a shot of adrenaline in your system. 5 Hour Energy is going to do that for you. Get in the zone with 5 Hour Energy. It's the shot of feeling and alertness that you need to get in the zone before a workout. If you want to get in shape but you're having trouble staying motivated, make 5 Hour Energy part of your lifestyle and get energy boost when you need it. When you need to hit the lift, you need to hit the 5 Hour Energy. With 0 sugar, it's a convenient portable size, also makes it pretty fun. It's the best pick-me-up in the game when you're trying to get stuff done. They have crazy flavors like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, and berry, plus many, many more. You can try them all. You can also build your own pack, whether it be a 12-pack or 24-pack. You get to choose the flavors and make it happen straight to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy products today, you will not regret it. And you can use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today to get squared away in your pick-me-up game. Get the energy that you need to dominate this weekend like the Cowboys should be able to do. But it's not going to be easy. I understand it's not going to be easy. But we've got some NFL Cowboys that may make life a little bit easier for some NFL squads. Now, we did have some dudes that ended up not quite getting there, but I do think that the fact that, they made a good showing for themselves, they're going to get picked up, whether it be a scout team or a reserve role. It's kind of surprising to see Jason Taylor not make the original 53-man roster after having such a good year last year, accompanying with the good start to this season. I think the same would be said about Tay Martin. That's a surprise. Christian Holmes, also a surprise. Tanner Brown, a little bit of a surprise. Trey Flowers, he's an old veteran, grizzled dude that may get another opportunity, but he is old. Sorry, so his playing days might be a little bit over. Playing days are not over, however, for, of course, Mason Rudolph of the Tennessee Titans. And here's the deal, guys. Will Levis is a good quarterback. But again, if Will Levis has the season that he did the first 5 games of his career, then Mason Rudolph will always stay on the bench. If Will Levis has the same game he did the last 5 games of his career last season, then Mason Rudolph will have a very good opportunity to be the Tennessee Titans starting quarterback by the end of the year. So it's really all contingent upon what Will Levis does or does not do. It's kind of reminiscent to Jaylen Warren. We all know that Najee Harris is in his contract year, so they could either use the tar out of him, knowing they're not going to pick up his option next season, or they could start implementing Jaylen Warren even more into the lineup to kind of steal some of those carries from Najee Harris, which has been happening over the last 2 years. More and more over the last couple of years, he's been able to steal carries from Najee Harris. It now feels like it's only a matter of time before Jaylen Warren is the starting back in Pittsburgh. But again, with this being Najee Harris' pickup option year, they could use and abuse him and rest Jaylen Warren to some degree. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, the best player in the country voted on by other players. Tyreek Hill, of course, he's going to be with the Dolphins. Emmanuel Ogbah is a Dolphin again, this time on a 1-year deal after a couple big-time massive contracts. Tyler Lacey was picked up yet again by the Jacksonville Jaguars because he continues to carve out a role, or at least they view him as a necessity. Malcolm Rodriguez, a.k.a. Rodrigo, has been a mainstay in Detroit now for a few years, and he plays a big-time role on the defense. He'll be backing up Alex Anzalone, much like last season, but they will use him in games. They will use him in packages. They'll put him at tight end if need be because they value him that much. Amen Bagma Miga. This is somebody, again, who's been continuing to carve out a role. He was with the Chargers for years, and now he is a Chicago Bear. If you watch the Bears in the preseason, he was basically the highlight of the defense more often than not. Another Chicago Bear, Tevin Jenkins, went from left tackle to right tackle to guard, and now they have him supplanted there. He's the main guy, and he's going to be able to protect Caleb Williams. Not a big fan, but it is what it is. Love Tevin Jenkins. Go the Bears. Chuba Hubbard, this should be his year, finally, as a Carolina Panther. He was backing up Christian McCaffrey. He had to split carries at one point in time with Miles Sanders. He had to split carries again to some degree last season. But after almost a 900-yard year, it does feel like this is his time. He is the guy, and it'll be exciting to watch the Panthers because they're pretty terrible. Tylan Wallace, another dude that has been, just getting enough playing time and just getting enough appearances to, keep himself in the public view. But maybe this is the year he does a lot more. Maybe this is the opportunity for him that he's been missing, because he could be a returner. He could be a backup for Rashad Bateman. He's only one injury away from ending up being the guy. And with the offseason he's had, it's only a matter of time. Justice Hill, another dude that we didn't get to see all that often because he was in street clothes, is a Baltimore Raven. The reason he was in street clothes is not necessarily because of injury, but because they wanted to keep him healthy, because he's a play away from tons and tons and tons of carries yet again. All right, so of course we got all these Cowboys in the NFL, including some of the practice squad guys. There's going to be more opportunities mixed in there for other dudes. Now we got to talk about a flip of a commitment of the Bedlam variety, and Austin Johnson flipping from OU to David Taylor's Oklahoma State Cowboy wrestling squad. This is a big deal because, OU is absolutely trash. They're terrible. And this kid wasn't going to get developed there. He wanted to go somewhere where he was actually going to get a little bit better, have some development, give himself an opportunity to be an Olympian. It's in Stillwater. I'm just giving OU a hard time. They got a good coach. But nonetheless, Johnson was the top 50 recruit at the 2025 class. He won the Pennsylvania state title at 215 pounds, 3-time finalist, 2-time Fargo All-American. He drew interest from colleges all over the country. He was also able to rush for over 1,000 yards. So athletically, we know he's pretty gifted. This is somebody that is kind of a big deal because we don't have an overabundance of people in this class. The class that is highlighted by Ladarian Lockett. It's still a big-time class, but this is a big-time pickup. So if there was any reservations about Oklahoma State landing in the top 10 again in recruiting, we were pretty much right there. This solidifies it. End of story. Great get, great pickup. Glad he was an OU guy. It makes it all that more exciting because, yeah, Bedlam is fun and they stink. All right, so yesterday I addressed it a little bit, but I kind of cut it out. But feel free to go to my Twitter if you want to see some of the craziness that happened yesterday. Somebody tried to make a wild accusation. He did come out and make a public apology. He also sent out the information to the powers that be to let it be known that I would never do anything like that. And they found, well, I don't know if they found the culprit, but I do hope they pursue legal action because the individuals that were trying to pretend to be me, they made things way more difficult than I thought, right? My regulators, shout out to all y'all. Y'all will remember that little moment in time where I had an account that was pretending to be me and sending a bunch of messages to players telling them they sucked and they weren't good enough to be on my show, and sending messages to players or parents saying that their kids are going to get cut. Mike Gundy's going to, run them off the squad, so they might as well transfer now. That stuff was, I don't know, annoying, right? Somewhat flattering, but really annoying. They took it to a whole nother level, like I feel bad for somebody kind of level. But I'm happy that it's not me. I do appreciate the public apologies. If you want to see the craziness that happened, feel free to go check out my Twitter. But, yeah. My dad always said that if you're doing nothing right, you won't have any haters. So I guess, obviously, I'm doing something right. I do hate that I'm 99.9999% sure it was somebody from our own fan base that did all this, that made this fake account and pretended to be me and tried to sabotage basically what is my career and how I make my living. I put a lot of work into this job. I respect this job more than anything, really. So, yeah, I mean, it stinks having people put stuff out there. It also stinks that some of the OSU softball squad was given this information. I'm glad to have the parent, reach out and make it right. I'm glad to have the record set straight. But this does it does highlight the fact that your own fan base can come after you simply because they don't like some of the things that you have to say. Feel free to go check out the X. But again, I appreciate the apologies, the public apologies on Twitter. I appreciate the messages explaining how this thing got out of hand. But it is what it is. I'm glad it got squashed. Now we can get over it. I appreciate it. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcasting people out there, you're the bricks, the butter, the bread, the foundation, the fondue, the fountain. You're all of it. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. Love you, taters. Bye.